Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I am going to start a PowerPoint, and that will be the first thing. I'll go through sort of information about the program, the PhD in Education Policy and Leadership, and go over some admissions information and some frequently asked questions. And then there were some pre-submitted questions by the people who registered that we'll get to. Some of that might be covered in this session, but I always like to let people know for these virtual sessions that I don't mind being interrupted. So please, if you have a question as I'm going through the PowerPoint, feel free to just enter something in the chat or shout out, raise your hand, whatever works for you. And we're happy to answer your questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So today we are talking about the PhD in Educational Policy and Leadership. My name is Alyssa Yesko. I'm the director of the Pathways into Education Center. So our office works very closely with prospective students to provide information about programs within the School of Education. I am also an alumni of this program. So I completed this program in 2020. If you have any questions about the program from a student perspective, I'm happy to answer them. But we also do have a student here today, a current student. But I'm going to let the rest of the faculty and staff who are here with us introduce themselves. Dr. Schiller, would you like to go first?
Sure. I have a bit of a cough, so I'm sucking on a cough drop, so I apologize. I'm Dr. Schiller. I'm an associate professor and department chair in policy and leadership. I've been here for a long time, so I've seen a lot come and go, but it's very exciting and rewarding to be working with students. So hi, I look forward to answering your questions and hopefully getting to know you as if you come into the programs.
Dr. Giuliano.
Hi, I'm Gina Giuliano. I'm in the Department of Educational Policy and Leadership as well. Also have been here forever. I teach some courses, but you may have been in touch with me already. I'm one of the first contacts usually for new students or for prospective students, and also I'm often the first advisor of admitted students. So I look forward to meeting you today and taking any questions you may have.
Maria.
Hey, thank you for coming. My name is Maria Moon. I'm the department coordinator for EPL, and I'm basically kind of the liaison between faculty, the department, and the School of Ed. So if you do decide to come, I will get to know you pretty well. And once again, thank you for joining the session.
Dr. Trollian.
Hi, I'm Tennille Trollian. I'm an associate professor in the department. This is my 9th year at the university, so not quite forever, but it's starting to get there. So I am largely in the higher education area, although I do teach some courses in the research sequence of the doctoral program and some other places, but I do a lot of teaching in the higher education area. And I'm also the chair of the department's admissions committee. So if there are questions specific that you might have about the admissions process, I hope to be able to answer them tonight. Welcome, everyone.
And Sarah, if you wouldn't mind just saying hi and introducing yourself as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Ibrahimi, second year in the EPL program. Excited to talk about the program. I'm excited to get you all excited to join. This is such a wonderful program, and yeah, happy to be here and assist in any way possible.
Thank you all so much. So yeah, I'll get started and moving through this PowerPoint. So our PhD in Educational Policy and Leadership is for those who want to advance their career and research skills, to reach career goals in lots of different areas, including academia, educational administration, different areas of policy analysis. Students are able to pursue research in various settings, allowing you to follow your passion. So we have students at alumni in K-12 schools, in higher education, government agencies, nonprofits, businesses, all over the place. The faculty in our program are some of the leaders in their field, always, producing new knowledge and continuing their research and contribution to the field. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to learn from these people and their wide range of expertise. The program itself is 69 credits plus dissertation. There's a flexible course offering for working professionals, with a large majority of our courses being able to be completed online. And any courses that are synchronous or in person are during the evening hours to accommodate working professionals. We allow for previous graduate coursework to count toward the program with approval from advisor or department. I'll talk a little bit more about that during a little bit later in the session. Something else that's great about this program is that you kind of are able to hone in on your interests within the field of educational policy and leadership. So for those who want to specifically focus on policy, you would declare the educational policy concentration, learning about policy adoption, implementation, evaluation. Our global and comparative educational policy concentration allows you to take a look at education across the globe and look at those aspects of policy on a wider scale. The higher education leadership is for those who want to work in colleges and universities or in that realm in a variety of different areas. And then our school leadership, I always like to mention that this is not the pathway to earn certification as a school leader. So as a school building leader or school district leader, we do have programs for that, but this is a great option for those who are more focused in K-12 and focusing on school leadership. So as far as coursework goes, there are different categories of required coursework to complete the program. There are pre-core requirements. Lately, I've been getting some questions about whether those need to be completed prior to admission to the program, and that's not the case. These are built into the program, so they are the courses that you take before the core requirements. And then there's concentration courses, which I just mentioned, the 4 concentrations, support discipline courses, which are typically social sciences, with a more nuanced view in education and educational policy. There's the research sequence, electives, and then your dissertation and doctoral examination. This is just a look at what the planning sheet looks like, so that you can sort of see sort of like how those courses fit together to create the program. And this is something that you would work on with your advisor to fill in should you choose to pursue the program. This is a lot of text, so I am clearly not going to read this, but this is just an example, or these are the courses that are offered within the department to give students an idea of the types of courses that you would be able to take. Some of my favorite courses that I took were I was a higher education concentration, so I really enjoyed my student affairs class, and also the Cradle to Career class was another favorite of mine. So like I mentioned, we have faculty with a wide range of expertise, and they have worked and conducted research in a number of different organizations, including OECD, UNESCO, National Advisory Board for the U.S. National Center for Mental Health in Schools. I always like to highlight our faculty because they've done some really amazing things. They've published some great work and written amazing books. And I always encourage students who are interested in this program to get to know our faculty a little bit. So this link brings you to our the department page for educational policy and leadership. And so, okay, there we go. If you scroll down past the different programs that we offer, you'll see some department news, but also our faculty. And so you are able to click on the names of any of the professors to learn a little bit more about their career and their research interests. And so it's a great idea to check this out so that you can see if there's anyone whose expertise align with your research interests, if there's somebody that you might be interested in working with should you pursue this program. Some information for our applicants. So requirements for your application include transcripts from all schools attended, 3 letters of recommendation at least, with at least 2 from professors. We do sometimes get questions about this, and so I'll talk about that in just a little bit. The letters from professors, students are able to submit up to 5 letters of recommendation. So if you have more, that's wonderful. A resume, a personal statement of goals, an educational leadership essay, and an academic writing sample. The deadlines for the program are rolling for fall, spring, and summer if you do not wish to be considered for a departmental assistantship. If you wish to be considered for a departmental assistantship and you plan to study full time, there are deadlines for those, with the spring deadline being today and the fall deadline being February 15th. It says here that the GRE requirement is officially waived through fall 2023. I should have updated that. There is no longer a GRE requirement for this program. Okay, so I like to just go through each of the application components to make sure everybody's aware and have no problems applying. So transcripts are one of the requirements. If you previously attended U-Albany, you don't have to request those as part of your application. We look at your GPA from all institutions and all levels when we're evaluating applications. You can upload unofficial transcripts. So if you have access to those, we can review your application with the unofficial transcripts. We would just need official transcripts upon admission and upon enrollment. Transcripts can be mailed to or emailed to the graduate school from your previous institution. Letters of recommendation are submitted directly through the online application portal. So you will provide contact information for your recommenders. They will receive an email with a link and instructions on how to submit their letter on your behalf. We recommend that letters of recommendation should be specific to the program you're applying to whenever possible. And wherever possible, at least 2 letters of recommendation should be from faculty members who have taught you in a classroom. The reason being, we want to hear from someone in an academic setting who can speak to your potential for successful study at the PhD level. And there are instances where people have been out of school for a very long time. In those cases, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Trollian, professional references are okay. But really only in those situations where it wouldn't be possible to contact faculty members from your time in higher education, and wherever possible, those professional references should try to speak to the qualities or skills that you have that would make you a good student. But correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Nope, that's correct. Thanks, Alyssa.
Other letters can come from someone who has observed you in a professional setting. And this is just like an informal personal recommendation as someone who writes letters of recommendation, but give your recommenders plenty of notice, as well as a hard deadline ahead of the date that you plan to submit your application. So let's say you want to try to get your application in by November 1st. I would ask your recommender to submit by October 25th, maybe just so that you aren't worried about where that letter might be at the time that you want to submit your application. So yeah, and sometimes we get questions about with a rolling deadline, when, what do we recommend as far as submitting an application? And for a PhD program, because of the amount of consideration given to applicants, we typically recommend like 6 to 8 weeks minimum ahead of the semester you're applying for to submit. So what would be the time frame for allowance? So asking like what would be considered a long time out of school to use professional references in lieu of faculty references. So Tennille, do you want to help with that one?
Yeah, so there's no specific time frame. And so I would say it's really helpful for us to have 1 or 2 letters that can really speak to your academic background. And so depending on, if you are like 5 years out and you're like, I feel like I know I for sure could ask one person, but I'm not sure who the other person might be, then you could do 1 academic reference and 2 professional references, for example. But as best you can, finding some of those academic references is really important, because we're trying to sort of understand your academic background as well as your potential for future academic study. And so there's no hard and fast rule about how many years out, those kinds of things. But if you, again, sort of have a combination of academic and professional references, that's usually fine.
Thank you. Oh, is that something that a student should explain in their application materials?
It's not something that's necessary to explain. I hope that we'll, I know, talk about some of the dimensions of the application continuing here in your PowerPoint, Alyssa. But it can be really helpful to talk about your academic background in your personal statement and to sort of talk about your motivation to study educational policy and leadership and perhaps a particular concentration within that, and to talk about your own academic experiences and your interest in further academic study. So if you wanted to mention, some of that work, I think that's more sort of relevant than necessarily including sort of justification for your different references.
Great question. All right, yeah.
I was also going to briefly note that if any of your professional references teach as an adjunct in higher education, that's one I would also reach out to, because they can still speak to your academic ability and potential to do well in a doctorate or have a doctorate. Some of our other students know some of our former students, like Alyssa, and they might reach out to Alyssa to say, could you speak about my likelihood of being successful in the program? You know me professionally. So that's another route to go to get a professional reference that's more than just yeah, they're a good worker.
Thanks, Dr. Schiller. We did get another question that someone had asked if this program was online or face-to-face. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. It is not considered a fully online program, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Okay, so for the statement of goals or the written components, because this program has a couple of different written components, the statement of goal is used by us to determine your fit for the program. What can you offer the program? And we also use this to evaluate writing skills, right? Writing is a huge part of a PhD program, so we're going to be looking at your writing skills. For you, this is your chance to talk about yourself and to highlight your background, your interests, the skills you have that would, make you a good student, and what you hope to get out of the program, research interests, career goals. It should be purposeful and to the point, so typically 1 to 2 pages. I always recommend that you do your research on the program that you're applying to. So why this program? What about it makes it a good fit for you? There are many helpful online resources to help you write a statement of goals, and your previous institution's career centers may also have some helpful resources. An academic writing sample. So wherever possible, applicants should submit an English language sample of their academic work, for example, a term paper from a course that you've taken. And then an educational leadership essay. So you choose one from 2 prompts and write a maximum 800-word response to that prompt. And those are right on our program page. Some frequently asked questions. How long does this program typically take? This is a tough question to answer, but I will do my best, right? So it depends on a few different factors, but on very average, with a very wide range, the typical completion of a doctoral degree averages about 4 years of full-time study. But some other things to consider are you going full-time or part-time? Do you have other life commitments, such as a job or a family? How many transfer credits are you bringing in? Your time management skills, the type of research you plan to conduct, and the time that it takes to complete your dissertation. So a lot of factors at play that can make that number vary. There is an 8-year statute of limitations with the university. So you have 8 years from the time that you enroll in the program to complete it. Can the program be done part-time? Yes, absolutely. That is how I did it. It will obviously lengthen the time to completion. The residency requirement for doctoral programs requires that you either study full-time or that you are involved in professional work that supports your studies. So I was working in higher education, and so I was able to just write a statement about how my professional work supported my studies in this program, and so I was a part-time student. Continuous registration is required for spring and fall, although a leave of absence can be permitted when needed. Can my previous graduate coursework count toward this program? Yes. So previous applicable graduate coursework can count toward the program. You'll work with an advisor after you enroll to apply for advanced standing, which is basically the process by which you sort of take the courses that will apply to this program and figure out how they'll apply. So students can bring in up to 34 credits. And some considerations are the content. So is it applicable to the degree and the length of time since the course was taken? Are online courses offered? Yes. Course offerings can differ from semester to semester, but this department in particular offers a robust selection of online coursework where a large majority of courses that are required for this degree can be taken online. However, the final core courses and research sequence courses do require some in-person components, whether that be a hybrid, where that's how so the in-person classes that are required when I took them, they were in hybrid format where we met on Saturdays a few times throughout the semester. So I think we met 7 or 8 times out of the 14 weeks, and the rest was online. Online courses may be synchronous or asynchronous or a mix of the two. And in-person and any synchronous online courses will be offered in the evenings. Like I mentioned, the one that I did on Saturdays, so to accommodate working professionals. So we have a question. Are there only evening offerings? That's a good question. Does anyone have I think Dr. Giuliano, didn't you teach a lunchtime class at one point, like a noon class?
I did. I taught philosophy of education at lunchtime on Fridays, but this semester I'm teaching it as a Wednesday hybrid, I guess you might say. It meets a Wednesday evening from 4:30 to 6:50. So I'm not doing the Friday time slot this semester.
Gotcha. Do we offer any classes that are not in the evenings?
We tend not to, honestly, because we can't usually get the enrollments for them. We do have asynchronous courses though, also, but we find it very hard to find everyone have the same lunchtime.
Makes
Or the
sense.
same afternoon or the same breakfast. Every once in a while, we also ask about, we did a student survey this year, and we also asked about, well, what about early in the morning? And no, it's basically 4:30 and 7:30 and some weekends, although they're not particularly popular. Well, Alyssa worked out really well when we did it.
It did for us, but we had a really great group in that class. In what ways can I fund my graduate studies? So financial aid and the financing of graduate studies is not my area of expertise, but I do like to mention this because it's a question that we get a lot. So I want to at least give some information and point you all in the right direction. So I mentioned earlier that the department does offer assistantships. So there's a limited number of assistantships for full-time doctoral students, which carry tuition benefits and or a stipend. I believe it's both. These do require full-time study, and some are offered to distance students when available, but that might have changed recently. Okay, that changed recently. So it's really for in-person students. With work with faculty, including assisting with research, teaching, or working with different departments. I want to make sure somebody let them in already. You have to apply for this consideration when you apply for the program. And there, like I said, there are deadlines if you wish to be considered. But there are also external assistantships available through the graduate school. So these are, I just mentioned departmental assistantships, so working within educational policy and leadership. Actually, Sarah is one of the graduate assistants, and she does some of her hours in the Pathways into Education Center with me and some of her hours working with a faculty member. And there are graduate assistantships through the graduate school, which are available to all graduate students, and they're not always in the, they're not within the department, so they might be in a different area, but I want to see if they have information on like which ones are available right now. So these are the ones that are available right now. This changes throughout the year, obviously. So
I will note that The ones for residential life, if you don't have a family and want to be in a resident advisor, they come with housing in addition to tuition and stipend.
Yes, that's right. Um, there are university-wide scholarships that you can apply to, but I like to highlight the School of Education scholarships. These are offered each year. They are donor-based, so they don't necessarily cover the entire cost of tuition, but it's a much smaller pool that you're applying against. And here is the 2024, so this past application cycle list of all of the scholarships. You'll see there are lots of them. And basically you submit one application and you would check off all of the scholarships that you are eligible for based on their description. So I think it's really awesome that we're able to offer these scholarships through the School of Education. So I do like to highlight those. You can apply for them each year that you're a student in the School of Ed. But for the best information on all of this stuff, financial aid and student accounts or the graduate school is the place to go to get the information. Where to find more information. So earlier I had mentioned the department page, which has faculty bios on it. So we visited that page already. And then also the program page, which I'm sure if you're interested in this program, you've already visited. The program page just has information about the program, the course of study, and then this is also where you'll find information on the areas of concentration and the admissions requirements. So just advertising my office, right? This is the PI Center. A great place to start if you have questions. So if you had questions after today's session, please feel free to reach out to us. We do Zoom meetings. We're pretty quick with our email responses, and we're always happy to help. So we have some submitted questions. We actually have lots. So some of these I might have answered during the session, and I see we have some things going on in the chat. So let's take a look. Let's get to these first. So outside of assistantships and department funding, there are loans available and more information can be found on studentaid.gov. Thank you, Jessica H. Scholarship.org is another good resource. Thank you for sharing that. Someone asked, should I need any recommendation from any professor of university at Albany, or can I directly apply for admission? So your recommendation can come from faculty from other institutions. It doesn't have to be a faculty member from the university at Albany. And you can certainly apply as long as you have all of the application requirements. I hope I answered that question okay. So I asked in the registration, does anybody have any questions or topics that they would like covered? So that's what these are. I think we went over the admission requirements and funding opportunities. The funding opportunities are available to both domestic and international students. We do have an Office of International Student Scholar Services, which may be able to tell you a little bit more about things specific to international students. So that might be a good place to visit as you're working on your application and learning more about our institution. Are there any scholarships for this program? Are there any that are specific for international students? So I went over the School of Education scholarships, but again, that Office of International Student Scholar Services may know about funding opportunities that are specific to international students, and I leave it to them because they are the experts. Would I be denied admission if I have not completed the pre-core requirement? So this question is, like I mentioned, it's a question that we've been getting when people are looking and seeing pre-core requirement, that it might sound a little bit like a prerequisite, but these are just courses that you take before the sequence that's considered the core course requirements. So these are the pre-core requirements are part of the program. Someone wanted us to cover information on eligibility. So I think we went over all the application requirements, but an application fee waiver, there are certain instances where that is available, and I'm going to include the email address for the graduate school because they handle all application fee waivers and can let you know if you're eligible. Someone in the chat asked a great question. What kind of job opportunities can I pursue after graduation? Does somebody want to jump in, talk about our wonderful alumni?
Because our program is so diverse, we literally have alumni all over the world in K-12 and higher education. Um, so the various types of jobs that you could apply for. You could, some of our students do become university faculty members, teaching in policy and leadership programs. We have one that's recently got tenured at the University of Nebraska. And others, though, go on to be school leaders and superintendents. So a lot of the superintendents in the area with doctorates have come from our program. Um, Others go on to work at government agencies like New York State Department of Ed, U.S. Department of Education. We have one that's currently in the State Department, and I think they're in China. They just went to China. We have some that are leaders in their government agencies back home in their home countries, everywhere from Pakistan, Indonesia, Dominican Republic. So I mean, literally all over the world. And so it prepares you for a variety of different high-level positions, not just faculty, but policymakers, researchers, government agencies.
I would add to that many of our students go on to work in leadership roles in higher education as well. So go on to work in colleges and universities, right? Like Alyssa is such a great example of this, that many of our students will go into different, sort of level roles within colleges and universities, not just in the US, but across the world.
Thank you. How does the educational policy and leadership PhD differ from the curriculum and instruction PhD in terms of career potential, course requirements, etc.? I think that's a great question.
I can't necessarily speak directly to the curriculum and instruction PhD, but the way I tend to think about it, that tends to be more focused on instructional, preparing teachers and doing instruction, mostly in K-12, but not necessarily. Some of them do some higher education work, but it's more focused on the teaching and learning process and curriculum design, whereas ed policy and leadership tends to be more focused on systems thinking, looking at the schools and school systems and educational systems more holistically. As Alyssa mentioned, one of her favorite courses was the Cradle to Career course that basically thinks about education as not something that takes place at a particular time, but actually is a process that takes our entire lifetime. So I would say probably the major difference between the two is the focus on what takes place in the classroom, in the curriculum and instruction versus ed policy and leadership, thinking about education more broadly as a system. And we also include higher education in ours specifically.
I did answer a question about previous credits. So master applicable graduate credits from a master's degree can be applied to this program. That's done in conjunction with your advisor once you're accepted to determine which of those courses can count toward the program. We talked a bit about how much of the program can I complete online. You know, a lot of it can be completed fully online. There are, like I said, a few core courses that require in-person components, but in any given semester, many of the courses can be completed online.
And just briefly here, because of the dissertation process, we feel it is important to have some real-time face-to-face interaction with faculty and other students. Alyssa can also speak to this. They become your support group.
Mhm.
So there are a small set of courses that we use to build those it's more of a relationship building and connection building and leading towards the dissertation process, which can be very lonely if we don't do that.
How can I apply as a Canadian citizen with international background?
Tennille, I'll defer to you. I don't think there's any difference than if you're just an international student.
No, the process for international students is the same, and I would encourage you to reach out to our International Services and Scholars Department if you have specific questions about visas and other sort of requirements and paperwork that's needed, but the application process is the same for students. And so our graduate admissions department can help answer your sort of specific questions about that, but the process is the same for all international students, even if you come from North America.
Would I be eligible for this program, having done a master's in English literature and being an international student? Yes. Yeah. You know, as far as courses from an English literature master's program counting toward this program, that would be like something to determine with your advisor. It's not as closely a related field as maybe something in education, but you're certainly eligible to apply coming from any background, really. I don't think that we are um, too restrictive on what your background is in when it comes to approaching this program. Is that correct? Someone
We
had,
have people come from many, many different backgrounds, including engineering and biochem. Those were hard to figure out how to bring in their transfer credits. They come from many, many other different fields.
someone said they have expired references, and wanted to know if they're eligible to apply. I don't know what would, can you clarify what you mean by expired references? Oh, meaning that they have passed. Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. We can come back to that if you want to clarify in the chat. Could
Well,
I, oh, sorry.
I'm not the person who asked that, but I will say, when I started looking at this, one of the things I realized is all the professors who knew me very well have passed away.
Okay.
It's been about 8 years. So my concern, based on what you were all saying, that's why I had asked, should I mention that, is I don't really have, in those who are alive, it's been 8 years and I was a master's student, so I don't know that they're going to remember me that well. So I just didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah, in that case, I would suggest, like, you can certainly clarify that in your goals statement and sort of talk about why you've included the references that you have, if that's the case. You might also reach out to the department where you were a master's student and say, I would have liked to have asked for a reference from this person, but I can't do so. Is there someone from the department who might be willing to write a reference letter for me and reference my transcript or other information that I could provide, or a little bit about the master's program, for example? There could be someone in the department who might be still willing to help you, even if it was someone you may have known sort of peripherally when you were a master's student. So it might be worth the ask.
But if it's international, it was my question about Canadian application with international background. So I have a lot of references from different countries, and but that reference is like 10, 15 years ago, and I can refresh them, but this is it okay if it's from Ukraine, Russia, something like that, not Canadian? Because Canadian professors, they said, look, we have not seen you for more than 5 years. We don't want to refresh it, kind of, these references. Because it was in Toronto and I am now back to Quebec, for example. That big difference. And I cannot go 7 hours from Montreal to Toronto to ask for, to remind myself. So that's why I'm asking about that international background. And I have these problems with references. They are not recognized. And this is my question, if it's okay, because I returned to professors back to Ukraine and they moved to Poland. And they say, they told me that, I don't think it's valuable reference for you now, even though you, back to my background is as postgraduate student. So how in this case, I cannot get, I'm having problems with references, simply speaking, what should I do?
Sure. So we receive international reference letters quite often for international students who are applying to the programs. And so I would say if it's an international reference, there's no limitation other than we would ask that the reference letter be in English so that our review committee doesn't have to necessarily translate. But if they could provide a reference letter for you, again, if it's something from your academic experience and might be a little bit older, that's fine. If it's a more current reference, then maybe it's something from your professional background or something that you're doing more recently, and a combination of academic and professional references is fine.
I do like to mention the option of pursuing non-degree study here at UAlbany. So for some students who are concerned about maybe the strength of their letters of recommendation or the immediacy of like when the person last worked with them, taking a course or two as a non-degree student in our department would allow you to not only get to know our faculty and whether the program is a good fit, but also to potentially have a faculty member from our department to write you a letter of recommendation. And so it's a great way to test the waters. It's a great way to sort of like get a feel for the program. And Sarah, who's here, reminded me of this option because this is what she pursued when she was applying to the program. So she took some courses non-degree and had a letter of recommendation written for her from a faculty member prior to actually applying and enrolling in the program.
Thank you. Yes, I got it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course. We had a couple of other questions. Someone had asked if you can apply for New York State teacher certification after graduating. This program does not lead to teacher certification, so you would not be able to do that. If you already hold teacher certification and you are completing one of our school leadership certification programs, like our school building leader or school district leadership programs, those programs can be nestled into the PhD program and completed sort of like along the way to the PhD. We had questions about the GREs. The GREs are optional. Someone was asking if they should apply directly to the program or to a professor within the department, and the answer would be directly to the program. And someone else had a question about the IELTS scores. So the English language score test scores. I believe that information on that can be obtained from our graduate admissions office. So graduate@albany.edu. They sort of oversee language testing. So one of the other questions that was submitted ahead of time, I read that some of the programs at Albany take credit for former masters. That's correct. We talked about that, but that those decisions aren't made without having applied to the program. Is that true of this program? And can you at least share if there's a cutoff X number of years ago for those credits? The reason that many departments do not do transcript evaluations is because it's a long process to evaluate the coursework. And so to do that for every student who expresses interest in the program, it can be difficult. There's a lot of times it might involve finding syllabi from your previous programs. And so we do that with students who are admitted and they have an assigned advisor. But if there's a cutoff, maybe can someone speak to that?
So the cutoff is typically 10 years. So we will look back at transcripts that are about 10 years old. If you have coursework that's a little bit older than that you'd like to request it be potentially transferred to be applied to your PhD program, typically there are sort of extra steps in that process. You need to give us some information about those courses. So a little bit about the content of the courses that might be a little bit older, as well as writing sort of a statement that discusses how you have perhaps used some of the coursework that's a little bit older and applied that maybe in, say, your professional work in the time that since you completed that previous degree, and how you've sort of stayed current in some of the topics that may have come up in some of that older coursework. So typically 10 years, but we have accepted some coursework that's a little bit older than that, but there's some sort of additional documentation that's required. And you discuss that with your advisor once you've been admitted to the program, and you can talk about sort of the content of all of your coursework that you've completed previously at the graduate level and how it might apply to the doctoral program. And you'll sort of work on that process together.
Thank you. Hilariously enough, started my master's 10 years ago. So just gonna slide into home plate with that one, I hope. And
Right on time.
I've started my application right now.
We had someone ask if it's possible to submit transcripts without WES evolution, which I believe is uh for international transcripts. I would reach out to the graduate school for information on that. Again, they're really the ones who handle all admissions and application materials questions. Unless you're asking something about one of our specific departmental requirements, like the departmental essay, we can answer questions about that. But general admissions requirements questions are best suited for the graduate school. Does the review process differ for someone applying to the PhD or the versus the master's program here at UAlbany?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the process is a little bit different for the PhD. There are more application requirements for the PhD. There's a writing sample and some other pieces of the application itself that are different for the PhD program. The process behind the scenes looks very similar for the master students and the doctoral students. The faculty actually do review individual applications in both cases, but the actual application materials are a little bit more extensive for the PhD program.
Thanks. Someone had pre-submitted, is it possible to apply now and be admitted for winter 2025? So we actually don't admit students for winter terms. This is a spring, summer, fall admit program. So the winter session is so short. You can apply for the spring and it's like a couple of weeks difference. The spring term starts in like January. So if that's your timeline, but I don't know how far in advance you can apply and be reviewed. I don't know if you're only reviewed as it gets closer to the time of admission. So maybe Tennille, you can speak to that.
Sure, you can apply at any time. And so even if you're considering an application for this spring, we're currently reviewing spring applications as we do rolling admissions. If you're applying for summer 25, fall 25, spring 26, we will review those sort of in order a little bit, but you could receive a decision if we're caught up on applications. You could receive a decision pretty early if you're looking at sort of a longer enrollment time frame. We do encourage students to apply at least a couple months maybe before the start of the academic term when you'd like to be considered, to give us time to review your application materials. But we do rolling admissions, so you're welcome to apply at any time that's convenient for you.
Someone had asked in the chat if a recording of this session would be made available, and the answer is yes. Once we basically have to like format the video and get it all situated. But if you email the Pi Center, it's picenter@albany.edu. We are happy to send you this recording. Someone was wondering if the application, sorry. Someone who graduated from the master's here and is now applying for the PhD. The application process is the same for students with a master's from UAlbany or another institution. I just want to make sure that that I'm mentioning the questions in the chat so that when we have the recording, if there's somebody who could use that information, we're still sharing it.
Yeah, the process is exactly the same for all students applying to the PhD program. The only thing is if you have a UAlbany degree, you won't have to go get a transcript. It will automatically be applied to your application. So you won't have to worry about requesting a transcript from a prior UAlbany degree.
Oh, Sarah has put the Pi Center email in the chat. Thank you, Sarah. In the writing sample, could I submit my any publication or my master's thesis or research work? I think either of those are certainly appropriate. Something that has been published or something that you have written as a culminating project for a course.
You can also include a prior academic paper, say from an undergraduate degree or a master's degree. We do want something that's sort of lengthy. One of the things that comes up occasionally is someone will submit something that they've published and it's about a page long. That doesn't give us a lot of information to review some of your interests and some of your writing. So a longer paper, certainly a master's thesis would be great. If it's a longer article, any type of lengthy article, that would be great. But if it's only a page or a couple pages, maybe think about Is there something else you could submit that might give us a better sample of your writing?
We've had so many great questions. This is a great group. Does anybody have any questions for Sarah? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but for Sarah, who is a current student in this program. Oh, that's okay. There we go.
Actually, I should have Sarah talk about sea change.
Oh, yes. Okay, so that's one thing I didn't mention. There is a community of students in this program, specifically the Sea Change group. And so Sarah, if you can just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Schiller. I thought I was off the hook. Okay, so Sea Change is, so by default, once you join the program, you are a member of Sea Change, which is an organization, graduate organization within the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy. And that is an organization run by students. It is for the students. It's like a hub for students to network, to learn about opportunities that faculty members are offering. It's also a place for students. It's an inclusive, equitable environment for students to get together. We do have workshops, monthly workshops around topics that are of interest of our international and domestic students as well. It's a great way to connect outside of schoolwork as well. We do a lot of fun activities for international students, especially those who are not familiar with the area. We've done barbecues outside of the school. We've done get together. We go bowling. We do a lot of fun activities as well. So it's a combination of a learning outlet and also a place for folks to get together and ensure that you guys feel very supported. Something I can tell you about this department, it's quite a supportive place to be part of. I'm an international student, and I've been in other places here in the US, and this department really embodies the principles of this of UAlbany. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to learn. You feel very supported. You would never feel like you don't belong, or that you are not worthy of being a graduate student. The professors are very welcoming, very friendly, and Dr. Gina and Maria, they are the first people I met when I reached out to the department, and I can tell you that meeting both of them was a sellout for me. They are the face of the department, and they do a great job showing you that it's a supportive place. And yeah, it's a great place to be. Sea Change is also a great organization to be part of. And Dr. Schiller, I think that's it. Dr. Schiller will definitely be your go-to person when you want to vent.
Thank you, Sarah.
She's a great listener. When you feel like this PhD process is a lonely process, she's the right person to reach out to. So so I hope you guys join us. It's you won't regret it.
Thank you, Sarah. Someone had a question. They earned their master's in Chinese history almost 19 years ago. Currently a substitute K-12 teacher. Am I eligible for this program? Yes. I think I mentioned that the students come from all different backgrounds after having been out of school for long periods of time. You're certainly eligible. Yeah, we welcome all applicants. Certainly. Are there any other questions? I would like to mention, and Sarah did put the Pi Center email in the chat. And if anybody else here, any of the other faculty or staff want to put their email in the chat for anybody who might want to reach out with additional questions, please feel free. Hold on just a sec. Anybody else have anything to add?
Jessica had her hand up briefly.
Hi.
I'm not new to UAlbany or some of these familiar faces on the call, and I was the one who put in the information about financial aid. So I worked in financial aid for 10 years. So hopefully that helps some of you. My question is to Sarah, although I've been in classes with Sarah, but one of the things I feel like I'm getting anxiety around PhD versus master's, which is why my questions are around moving from master's to PhD. But when you talk about like your work-life balance, did you think that going into the PhD program, like how was, you know, obviously you have to tell me your whole story, but like, what about a little snippet about like when you first got into the PhD program and how you were able to like maneuver in the program and kind of just figure some of that out as a student now?
Again, as I said earlier, I think when you have a supportive environment, you can balance things around. When I started as a non-degree. So one of the things that I've had my master's more than 15 years ago. And so I didn't have any recommendation letters. And so testing the waters allowed me to see if this is a program I'm able to handle work-wise, workload, and family balance in both of these two things. I can tell you it's very manageable as long as you organize yourself around making sure that you put hours towards your reading. Reading is what I find that will take most of your time, and so you just want to organize yourself around. Put in 2 hours a day, sometimes 1 hour a day towards reading your material. It can really help a lot. Weekends, catch up on weekends. I like to spend weekends doing schoolwork. But again, I think what's really important is when there is a supportive environment and you know that sometimes you may not be able to deliver on due dates, or you're not able to submit what you are supposed to, or following a deadline. This is not at face value, but you could reach out to a professor and explain, this is what happened, and is there a possibility I can work with you to submit my work maybe after, or so it's very supportive. It's you are, as a student, we're humans at the end of the day, and so if things happen and life happens, as we all know, it's not a make or break deal. It's yes, I am here. The thing is, you feel that professors are here to help you to make it. It's not like they're here to make sure that they're holding you accountable for every single mistake. So that's the difference, and that's a huge. So it's possible. I have a teenager and a 9-year-old, and I'm telling you, it's possible.
Thank you.
And Jessica, just to mention, I completed the master's program before going into the PhD, and I think it was, for me, that was a good choice. It was a good option to sort of like see, okay, is this program for me? And could I handle the work? And then I applied to the PhD. And so pursuing the master's first might also give you the opportunity to participate in some research ahead of the PhD program and strengthen your application, but also all of the credits from the EPL masters can go toward the PhD. So it's never wasted time. And so that, like, I still felt like I was making progress if I did decide that the PhD was for me. And so, yeah, that I also wanted to share that. And everything that Sarah said is true.
Thank you. I mean, I finished a master's just this past May.
Oh, okay.
I'm scared. I don't know. Just I see PhD. I think
so
research. It's just the research part. I think I'm thinking too much about research. That's all.
No, so Jessica, I was also grappling with kind of the same thing, and it came down to like, okay, the more time that passes with me contemplating this, I could be doing it, right? And so it was more like, I'm going to start it now, and I'm that much closer to finishing. And research seemed really intimidating, and Dr. Schiller can let you know that, like, at first I didn't really have my footing there, but they guide you, and it all really comes together. They are there to show you how to be a researcher, and even if you have very little experience in that area. And so I feel like I came so far in this program because of the faculty. So yeah, sorry.
I think Tennille was her dissertation chair, wasn't she? No.
She was on my committee. She was a brand new faculty member at that time. And so I don't believe she was taking on students as their chair. Dr. Dan Levy was my dissertation chair.
Jessica, if you're still there, you should feel free to reach out to the faculty you had. As I said, I recognize the name, and I'm like going, So I almost went to look and see your folder, but I won't. I'll resist doing that.
Well, my application, I'm waiting for one recommendation, but my application is in. I just, I'm praying in the meantime. I'm excited about it. I work in higher ed. I'm ready to go, but I just kind of want to hear some of the testimonials just to kind of get my mind ready for the spring. So I did apply for the spring. So hopefully
Jessica,
I get one more recommendation then.
I'm in Catskill 101. And Sarah is there during the hours that she works. So if you ever wanted to talk through anything, pop over to the office and I can talk to you about my experience and being a working mom while I was going through the program. And yeah, happy to talk about it. Does anyone else have any questions? All right.
I'm sorry, Dr. Alyssa, one more thing for Jessica to just make up her mind. We don't do research. When you think about research prior to PhD, you think it's an individual pursuit. The best thing is that you do everything. I mean, I have Dr. Schiller now for the research sequence, and so you're doing some of it, but Dr. Schiller is guiding you through everything. So don't let that PhD piece deter you from not moving forward with it. It's great.
And I think Alyssa can attest to this, and I know Tennille and Sarah that I'm going to do this because you're looking forward to it. It's one of the things you get to do that's your own.
Yeah.
It's what you craft. It's your idea, what you're curious about. You get to go and say, how can I learn about this? And I want to know something that we don't know, and it's yours. It's completely tailored to you and your interests and your knowledge, well, within the department guidelines. And so in some respects, it's the most fun thing. That's what I was told when, and I found that it was the most fun time, intellectually stimulating time of my life. I wish I could say the same about being department chair now.
I was looking back on my bookshelf here because I thought I ordered my dissertation as a hardcover book. And so I wanted to just say, like, yes, this is something that I created. This is something that I wrote on my own. And it's something I'm so proud of. So if you apply, I hope you hold one of those in your hand someday because it's a great feeling. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We hope that you learned something about the program, got your questions answered, or you feel more, confident in your decision that this is the right program for you. But as always, we have another question. Should I apply for a master's instead of PhD since I do not have solid references? That might be a good, the non-degree option might be a great option. I don't know that you necessarily need a whole master's, but the non-degree option might be a great place to start. And then you might say, you know what, I think I want to just do the master's first after you started non-degree. The non-degree courses can count toward either the master's or the PhD. But non-degree would be taking up to 12 credits before you apply to a program. And so I think that can be really helpful for getting references and for getting your foot in the door. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening or whatever time it is, wherever you are. Enjoy the rest of it. Thanks, everyone.